Hey guys, ML here. If you're looking to start a podcast, start with Buzzsprout. If you let them know we sent you through the link below, you get, when you sign up for a paid plan, you get a $20 Amazon gift card. How cool, right? You get free money for signing up to get your podcast started. So Buzzsprout gets you the show listed every major podcast platform that you need. That's Amazon, that's Google, that's Alexa, every place. You'll get a great looking podcast website, audio plays that you can drop into your own website, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, tools to promote your episode, and so much more. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. Today's show is brought to you by Minter Brand Jewelry for all your teenagers' jewelry needs. I'm here with special guest, Kim Gemmell, and her wonderful book, Smile Again. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So this is a little bit about self-isolation and COVID-19. So obviously I don't have to ask you where you got the inspiration because 2020 was inspiration.
Yes. Yes.
But how did you actually formulate, okay, we need to do something positive in this time?
Well, for quite a few years now, I've been somebody who wants to uplift and show people that we can rise through great adversity. And my purpose was inspired by my own journey when my son was born with a critical heart defect back in 1998 and not expected to live. He was in the hospital for almost 5 months, had 4 heart surgeries, including respiratory arrest, cold blue, renal failure, and so much more. So it was a bit of a miracle when at 5 months on Thanksgiving Day, he had his final heart surgery to cut and switch his great arteries and repair his heart, and all patched up enough to come home.
Oh.
So it was wonderful, but it was an exhausting experience. You can imagine having a baby, one of the most exciting experiences in your life. And we didn't know that he had a heart defect in utero. So when all of a sudden I had an emergency C-section because my placenta broke, and it just I almost became unconscious because I lost so much blood. But luckily, we were able to get me into the OR for emergency C-section. And then when he was born, and I came conscious afterwards, of course, they told me that I had delivered a baby boy, but he was very sick, and a team of specialists from Children's Hospital were coming to take him away. So I didn't even get a chance to process all this, of course, and the next thing I know, he was being wheeled away before I could hold him. I got to see him briefly as they carted him out, but he was hooked up to so many machines and wires and
It's scared to look at. I mean,
right. Yes, it is, exactly. I up until then, I had lived this white picket fence lifestyle, married my wonderful, handsome husband, and we had a beautiful little girl, Jessie, who was 3 at the time when Avery was born. So our whole world was turned upside down, and luckily my parents offered to babysit Jessie because the hospital was 2 hours out of town, and we took our RV there because they had hookups in the parking lot for out-of-town patients. So we spent the next 5 months basically living in a parking lot, most of it in the hospital, just a few hours of sleep out in the van. And in the midst of it, about 3 weeks after Avery was born, my dad suddenly died of a heart attack at home. And well, Avery's fighting for his life. And he was my mentor. He was my best friend. What more could happen? And then shortly after that, our little daughter Jessie got diagnosed with autism. So this perfect little life went spiraling out of control very quickly. And yeah, it felt like a tornado had lifted me up and landed me on another planet.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was a bit of a wimp because up until then, like I had mentioned, I had this pristine lifestyle with everything going as expected and planned. And then this happened. And I thought, oh, how am I going to deal with this? But, humans have a mechanism inside of them that can cope with great adversity if they choose to draw off that resource. And fortunately, I had the fortitude to do that. And I thought, if Avery can hang in here and fight for his life, I got to be here for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long haul. And I remember making a promise to God and myself that if I could ever get to bring Avery home, I would be the happiest mom in the world. And I didn't care what kind of shape he was in, I just wanted to bring him home. So when that wish got granted and we were able to bring him home, I was, of course, the happiest mom in the world. But I remember the surgeon saying, well, I've patched up his heart, but I can't guarantee what kind of shape he's going to be in because he had gone through so much. But I didn't care because lack of oxygen to the brain when he had a cold blue and things like that. So they don't know what kind of repercussions that's going to have. And now I'm dealing with this newly diagnosed autistic daughter to deal with all this as well. But I was happy because for so many months in the hospital, we met a lot of parents and families, babies who didn't make it out. The parents left the hospital without their babies. So I was just felt blessed. And people would say to me, you're always so happy, but yet, you've gone through all this stuff and you have this life with these children. And I kind of looked at them like they just didn't get it. I was feeling blessed because my children were here with me, and they were fairly healthy and happy. And as it turned out, Avery graduated school with honors, even winning the Nelson Mandela Hardest Working Student Award. And my daughter's won all kinds of awards for her volunteering. She's 26 now, Avery's 23, and they've done some amazing stuff. And so, backtrack a little bit, I felt this calling that I had to turn my experience into a purpose to help others realize that life can be wonderful even if it doesn't go as we expected or planned. And so I thought, well, how am I going to do that? I'm going to write a book. And I thought, no, wait a minute. I can't write a book. My English professor in university thought I didn't have any writing talent, and basically, was very candid about that. But he was not a very kind or nice person. But when we're young, we're very impressionable, and we tend to believe what the experts say, or the professionals say. So I pushed the notion of writing the book for quite a few years. And then it just kept gnawing at me. And I thought, well, I guess I have to write this book. I didn't know, of course, the first thing about writing a book, but then I started writing. I just got to my computer and started writing. And it took me 5 years, but it was in 2014 that I published it. And then I became a public speaker and did TED Talk and all kinds of speaking events. And that led me to now fast forward to all of a sudden COVID has come. And I've wanted to write, and I'd wanted to write my second book a long time ago, but time, like, where's the time to write a book? It takes a lot of time. And with my active life, I'm like, it just never happened. It just got getting put to the back burner. And then the silver lining of COVID was now I had time because we were all at home. We couldn't do anything. All of the committees and stuff I was on were halted. Everything was done by Zoom, as it still is. So I thought, now I have the time to write this book. So I knew I wanted to call it Smile Again. And I knew it wanted to be about anecdotes to prosper through and during challenging times, finding the silver linings, finding motivation, finding courage, building the belief in yourself that you can do things and it's never too late. So just a really kind of, I would say, chicken soup for the soul with a twist of turn your wounds into wisdom kind of book.
Right.
So it's, and I use some examples of great mentors of mine who have made it through great adversity. One which a fellow by the name of Dan Keplinger, he had severe cerebral palsy, no motor control, but he would strap a paintbrush to his head and paint these miraculous paintings. And his documentary won an Oscar. So, just things that to help encourage people that even if they have limitations or things have happened to them, that, you know what, there is a way. If there's a will, there's a way. That is just the truest saying, really, that I can ever say. And so it just helps people. And I think during this COVID time, we need anecdotes like that.
We
To,
do. We need positive, because people forget everything positive they have going on until something dramatic happens and you're
exactly.
forced to say, okay, maybe my life wasn't so bad 6 months ago, or,
Right.
whatever it was before this event. I mean, before me, 2011, I was in and out of the hospital, ended up having 2 strokes, brain surgery, and my daughter's autistic. She was diagnosed right in that same time frame being
Wow.
autistic. So I wasn't expected to live to see my next birthday.
Wow. Wow. The
Yeah.
similarities.
Yeah.
Right?
So we didn't know if I was going to see 29. I was not that old in 2011. I mean,
Right.
seriously.
Yes.
But no one expected me to be there. And now we have an autistic child that's screaming. And if you have an autistic child, you understand the
Yeah.
tantrums, you understand they don't cope with a change in routine. So now mommy's hooked up to machines in the hospital. And I don't remember much of the hospital itself, but there was this one time I had 3 adults, all my family, in the hospital room with me, and my 7-year-old daughter wandered off. Yeah. In the ICU, I can't do anything. And they had to call a code Adam for an autistic child wandering around the hospital.
Mm. Oh my
It,
goodness.
yeah, it's then you look at it now, 10 years later, you know, what was I thinking? My daughter should not have been in that situation because she can't handle it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's learning to smile. If she didn't have that experience, she would not be the child she is today. She wouldn't want to be in volunteering. She loves to volunteer. She loves to help people. She hates
Yeah.
seeing people suffer.
Right.
Why? Because she's seen mommy suffer.
Yes. Yes. Wow. It sounds like our children have a lot in common because Jesse's the exact same way. Because she was 3 when Avery was born, and then
Mhm.
her favorite person in the whole world, her grandpa, who she wanted to see every day. She couldn't talk at this time,
Mhm.
but she could say, "Go see grandpa," and she wanted to see him every day. And then all of a sudden, he's gone, and we're gone because we're in the hospital. And she said one day to my mom, who my poor mom having to deal with all this, her husband of 40 something years is passing, her daughter having a son born with a critical heart defect in the hospital, and
Mhm.
now Jesse with autism. And Jesse said one day, "Mommy, Daddy, Avery, Grandpa, all gone." She thought we had all left her. She was
Mhm.
abandoned, and it broke my heart. We would come out to visit on days when Avery was stable and come for a visit. But
Mhm.
then we'd have to leave, which was just so painful for her because she couldn't understand why we were leaving her again.
Yeah.
It didn't, the world didn't make sense. I tried to explain the best we could that Avery needed us because he was sick, but she was 3 and autistic. She didn't comprehend that.
No.
But right, what you said, like with your daughter, what you experience makes you a stronger person and more caring, giving, loving person
Mhm.
because there isn't a happier person that I know that gives unconditional love like Jesse. But like you were talking about in the younger years, it was really really taxing on us because the tantrums and the escape, she would escape as well and take off, and they're strong and you
Yeah,
can't
they are.
block, right? Yeah. So many scary years in those younger years, but we were finally able to get a really good doctor that said she was riddled with anxiety, and once we put her on anxiety medication, it made a whole difference in the world. Um, but unfortunately, the doctors I'd seen previously didn't want to go that route, even though I did. So I had to fight tooth and nail to get to see this child psychiatrist with waiting lists, of course, a year or two long. And
Mm-hmm.
finally got what we needed, and it just transformed her life. And finally, and now, because that was when she was younger and the world didn't make sense, but now she's older, she's in a really great environment with people that are like-minded, and she's doing so much better. We were able to wean her off her medication, and she's not on any now.
See, my daughter, she's turning 18 Monday. So she's not on medication now.
Mm-hmm.
She took herself off with, anyone knows you don't take yourself off of medication. You do, but she took
Right.
herself off. And at her age, and I can't force her as her mother to take medication at 17, 18 years old.
Right.
But she's so much happier because now she's seeing the world make sense, at least makes sense to her.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah, it's okay. The world doesn't make sense to any adult right now, but it makes
Right.
sense in her little corner of the world because
Right.
she can write, she can help people, she can volunteer.
Right.
And if you can learn from an autistic child to smile even when the world doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
then you can smile through anything.
Yes, I completely agree. It's Jessie's helped so many people through this pandemic with her bright disposition and putting things into perspective,
Mhm.
and continuing with her volunteer work, and just that, yeah, her demeanor. It's hard to be in a bad mood when she's around because she's just so uplifting. But
Yes.
it is a blessing. They really are. And when I look back to life the way I had thought it was going to go, having the two children, they go off to school and then college or university, get married, have children, and um, you know that's kind of what the plan is. That's what we believe and think and it's supposed to happen. And when it doesn't, we're not really equipped to understand how to deal with this. It's challenging because we haven't had any experience or practice or learning about how to raise a special needs child. Because
Right.
nobody goes to pregnancy thinking, well, I better learn about Down syndrome, autism, in case my baby isn't typical. We don't do that, and so we have a lot to learn. And in time, we understand that it was actually a blessing because there are wonderful people who have made me, who thought I was the biggest wimp ever, to write a book, do a TED Talk, become a public speaker.
Mhm.
If Avery and Jessie hadn't been born to me, I wouldn't have done any of that.
Right.
I didn't think I could.
No, we look at our children, and our children push us into a direction that we never thought we could take.
Yeah.
My daughter has pushed me to write my first book. She pushed me to write my second book, and I'm on book 17 now.
Wow.
So, and then I have my cousins that are, hey, you need to come talk to my class. You need to come talk to this one. I'm like, okay, so now I'm doing public speaking to schools, and I'm so blessed because I get to do the Zoom meetings all over the world.
Right.
And for any author, go on to Authors in the Classroom through not Zoom, it's Skype.
Yeah.
And you can go and talk to kids that are very impressionable and get them going, get their imaginations going, connect to your readers, connect to the younger generation, connect with them on motivation.
Right. Right. That's great. And that's how do you find that resource?
That is Authors in the Classroom through Skype.
Okay, Authors in the Classroom.
It is a free resource to both the author and to the students or classrooms.
Okay, I love that. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, good stuff. Yes, that's one of my favorite things to do too. I love speaking at schools and I love speaking to the youth, especially about not letting anybody squash their dreams because of what anybody says, whether it's a teacher, a friend, a mentor, a parent. Sometimes we're not in environments where we have a lot of positive people telling us that we can do anything. It's
Right.
unfortunate, but we sometimes are in homes where, we feel insignificant and not worthwhile.
Mhm.
So I love to talk to these kids and tell them my story and tell them how I almost didn't write my book because I didn't think I was good enough or smart enough because of what somebody said, and how to let them know that the one beautiful thing that we have that nobody can take away is our own thoughts and our own choices. We have that ability, and we have that ability to not listen to the naysayers, the
Yes.
people that say you can't. It's a choice, and we have the choice to say, I'm not going to listen to you, and I like to let these young ones know because, like I said, with me, I was young and impressionable and believe what the experts say. So, to let them know to not let anybody, no matter who it is, squash their dreams
Mhm.
because it's just, they don't have that right to take that away from you.
No, and the thing is, when you're in school, and this is really bad right now in the schools, is the bullying. If you have seen so many people, so many kids suffering from being bullied. You have the 8-year-old that has committed suicide. You have the 10-year-old that committed homicide, then suicide. You have all these negative, impressionable children, and they're so young
Yes, yes,
that we need to do something for. We have to tell them, no, don't listen to
right.
Sally over here or Bobby over there, whatever the kids are. You have to be your own person. And it's
Yeah.
hard, especially with social media, especially with all the mediums that we have out there now versus what we had in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. I mean, it
Right.
was bad then, but it's horrible now
Yeah.
because we don't have the escape. We go home and then we're bullied on social media.
Mhm. Mhm. And a lot of times, depending on our home environment, we don't have the support that we need.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, even if we do have that support at our disposal, we don't talk to about it.
Right. I mean, we don't talk about, hey, Sally was really mean to me today. They're saying whatever they're saying, or I was pushed into a fill in the blank, or they knocked my books out of my hand. We don't tell our parents that because either A, we are not validating ourselves to tell our parents, even though they will listen, or B, our home life sucks and it's no different at home than it is at school for us.
Right. And also, I've found that some kids are afraid to tell their parents because then their parents will do something about it, and then the retribution for talking will
Hmm.
be even worse. So they
Yes.
just keep their mouth shut about it. So yeah, it needs to be really addressed, and I think doing things that what we're doing is trying to create that awareness,
Hmm.
and speaking to the schools and speaking to the kids. I I think that that's a step in the right direction to create that awareness because awareness is key. Once we are aware that we have options and we have things that coping mechanisms, we have tools, then we can begin to change and shift the paradigm. But until we have that awareness,
Hmm.
it goes back to that old saying: we don't think if we don't know what needs, it's broken, we don't know what needs fixing.
Right.
Kind of like thing. We once we realize that there is an out, there is a way out, and they have that tools. So awareness is key, and I think by talking about it is the only way that we can spread that awareness.
Exactly. We have a toolbox, but many of us don't open the toolbox, so we don't know what tools are there. When we
Right.
take the toolbox to the school and say, here's the tools, this is how you use them,
Yes.
then
Yes.
you create a self-awareness. You create an environment where the child feels safe enough to address it themselves properly, not by bullying themselves.
Yes. Exactly. And I find that, and I hear that with the COVID pandemic, it's gotten a lot worse.
Mhm.
It's gotten a lot worse because a lot of the people who are bullying people are actually being bullied themselves, and that's what they turn
Yeah.
around and do to other people. So
Mhm.
now that with the greater amount of people who are suffering because of the challenges that COVID has brought on, it's just going to be amplified. So we have to really be steadfast in our message And the more we can talk about it, the one nice thing about this social media and Zoom is we now have these avenues to reach out to get to people.
Right.
So that's one of the silver linings of COVID is we learned how to be better communicators. So I think that's and that's kind of what Smile Again is all about. Is about finding those silver linings that have come to us, that making the best of a bad situation, of a bad time. I talk about the pandemic in 1918, and in my book, I talk about what they did back then to rise above adversity. And it's really interesting to see how they all rallied together to get through that pandemic. And they didn't have the communication networks that we have now.
Right.
So we are pretty lucky compared to what they went through. So it's just when you put things into perspective and you see that there are ways that we can cope and deal and get through this, it gives us hope, and hope gives us optimism, which makes us smile. So that's why I call it Smile Again.
We all need hope, and we all need to smile. Whatever we're dealing with, we have to smile. We have to find that inner peace, if I can talk today. But
that's why I have water.
So while we're on the subject of social media, how can our readers and our listeners find you?
Great. Well, I have a website. It's kimgemmell.com. So it's KIMGEMMELL.com. And that they can purchase my book through my website. They can also Google my name on Amazon. So the book sales are on Amazon as well. And this is what the book looks like. So in case any of you want to, this is on radio, right? No one can see.
Well, we have radio and we have video.
Oh, so, okay.
Yes.
Oh, good. So I can go like this and say, hey, this is Smile Again. So on the cover, my wonderful lifelong girlfriend painted the flower. So it's and I wanted a symbol of something beautiful growing through a crack.
Yes.
So to symbolize that, even though things might be cracked a little, beauty can still come through. And that was the motivation behind that cover. And so my girlfriend offered to paint it because she's a wonderful artist. And proceeds, I'm sharing proceeds with certain charities as
Awesome.
well. Yeah, some of my favorite charities. I feel that it's important to give back.
It is. I mean, as an author, as anyone, is always important to give back, because when you give to others, you actually receive self-enlightenment.
Yes, that's right. It's almost a little selfish because it makes us feel good to make others feel good.
Yes.
But it's a good selfish because it's a win-win. I find that in that
Yes.
situation. And I talk a little bit about the law of attraction in the book as well, about how thoughts become things, and more good things get more good things. Just like the grumpy negative people always are going to have grumpy situations and negative situations, whereas a positive happy person keeps getting more of that. So we keep getting more of what we already got. The tricky thing is if you're in a bad place, how do you get there from here?
Right.
And so that was a challenge for me for some time, when I wanted to turn my life around and find the good, not dwell on the negative. It's not that challenging once you practice it. It's like anything. Practice, you get
Practice makes perfect. We hear this in anything.
It's true too, isn't it? The more you do it, and you have to have persistence. You have to have desire. In order to, because things don't come overnight. Like a lot of the people who understand the law of attraction as, oh, just ask for it and it's there. Well, no, it's not quite that simple.
You have to ask for it, then you have to take steps to achieve it.
And you have to put your mindset. Like one of the examples I really like is, I remember years ago when Oprah interviewed Jim Carrey, and he was very poor, living out of his van, with his parents, and he had aspirations to be a great actor, but he wasn't there yet. But he would get himself into the feeling of being there already. And that's when he wrote a check for $10 million and wrote it to himself and put it in his wallet. And many years later, the check was almost disintegrated. He got the role in Dumb and Dumber, which paid him $10 million. So it was pretty cool. So you have to believe it, you have to make the steps to achieve it, and you have to put your mind in the mind frame as it's there, it's just not in your hands yet. It's there. And so I like to give a little bit of anecdotes about how we can get there and how, I'm a prime example. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Right. I mean, you have to take steps, you have to work at it. But if you sit on your couch, eat popcorn every day and complain about your life, you're never going to get there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And it's that's where we, have to understand that it is a choice. What some of the circumstances that get delivered to us, like your stroke and Amy's heart defect, that is not a choice. But what we do with following it is. And that's what I like to kind of get across to people, that anybody can do it. It's no matter what setbacks you've had in your life, no matter what limitations you have, whether they be physical or mental, you can achieve your goals. And once you read Smile Again, you see that. And it's only been out for not even quite 2 months yet, but I cry at some of the comments that I get from people who. I just got a message from a person, because my email is on my website, saying that the book has made her a happier person and a better mom. And another person has said, you know what, I've always wanted to do, what was it? I can't remember, or go get their drug and alcohol counseling degree, but they were already in their mid to late 60s and thought it was too late for them. But now they're like, I'm going to do it. It's only a 44-week course, and I'm going to do it.
It's not how old you are when you start something. The founder of KFC was in his 70s. J.K. Rowling was in her late 40s, early 50s. It's not when you start it, it's when you decide to start it.
Yes, exactly. And so helping people understand that there are no limitations. And I talk about that too. I have a girlfriend that's 86 and still plays on a baseball team. Well, not now because of COVID, but was playing on a seniors baseball team at 86. And she's got nicer legs than me. It's like, so giving people hope is what we all need more than ever right now, I think.
We do. We need a lot of hope right now. We need that silver lining, because we have to find it within ourselves. It doesn't matter if your silver lining is, hey, I just had a year at home with my kids and I relearned how to be a parent.
Right.
That is a wonderful silver lining if you look at it as, I just had a year with my kids that I didn't have before, because they were in school. I was working. I just had a year to learn what my kids think.
Yes, exactly. That's the right attitude completely. And I talk about that too in the book, because I leave some examples, because I made a Facebook post kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic, just saying, okay, let's try to make some positives here in this dark, dreary time. What good things have you been able to find so far throughout this pandemic? And I was amazed at the responses from people. Some of the things that they have found that they didn't realize before, and that they feel more grateful for and appreciation. So it was wonderful to see that during this time, there was these people that are finding those silver linings. And so for people that are struggling a little bit more than others, I think that it's imperative that they realize that anybody can find those silver linings, no matter who you are or what you do. Right.
I mean, we can find a silver lining in any major tragedy, because for every major tragedy, I can't talk.
When we talk a lot, it's like, you need water like me.
Oh, I have my cup here, but it's finding the positive, because everything that is negative is teaching us how to find something positive.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
may not look like it, it may not feel like it, but
Yes.
every negative has a positive there
Yes.
waiting.
Yes, and it's hard to understand for many of us that how could that be?
Mhm.
And that's why I felt it was important to write the book, because I use my own experience of a lot of adversity and tragedy to turn it around and spin it around. And that's a great thing to be able to learn from that and then pass it on to others to pick up as well. I think if we all did a little bit more of that, it would be a lot happier.
We need a lot more silver linings in this world right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the best we can do is put out books, do these radio shows, the podcast, and hope one person hears it, and then that one person tells two more people.
Exactly, and we're getting there. It's happening. I can see it already, and from the feedback from my book, I see that I'm getting through to people. And from what I hear about all the good things you do too, we're making a difference, and that's a great feeling.
We are one book at a time, or one guest at a time. So
Exactly.
thank
Yes.
you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was just a delight to chat with you.
Yeah,
Really.
this was fun. And if you write something else, please come back and let our
I will.
viewers and our listeners know.
Yes, I will, and maybe I'll come back to give you an update on where things are at, and with me down the road as well.
Sounds wonderful.
Yes.
And for all of our readers, our viewers, and our listeners, happy reading.